1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in they Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters gon' move, whatever click you choose. So let's get into today's video, and to keep it 100 with y'all, I don't even know what I'm gonna title this video, right? First and foremost, I'm sure you noticed I got on my hat. Today is Sunday, I'm feeling like a player. It is what it is, right? I always read through the comments, and at times I'll see people saying that, some of these prison YouTubers, myself included, right? We can at times act extremely childish, right? And so I wanted to get into that today. Just because you see an individual of a certain age doesn't necessarily mean that dude is acting what people would equate is the mature level for that individual's age, right? And in terms of talking about, prison YouTubers or YouTubers who have spent a considerable amount of time in prison, I wanted to touch on that and expound on that a little bit, right? Especially for the individuals who went to prison during the times that I did. I was locked up in 1994. I paroled in 2018. Prison is changing, right? But especially back then, man, prison was a avocation for immaturity. It was a supporter of violence, right? So a lot of times people may see individuals who have gone to prison, who have served a large amount of time, come right back out and reoffend and be like, damn, man, that dude is stupid. That dude spent 15 years in prison. He get out, he stayed out 5-6 months. He didn't kill 2 or 3 people, and he then went right back to prison. I think a lot of that happens in part because, like I said earlier, once again, prison was not a place, especially in my day, a place that necessarily was trying to rehabilitate individuals, right? And so it's easy to get caught up in what is known as a form of arrested development. And while I had heard that term before I went to prison, I really didn't understand the term arrested development until I went to prison. And it dawned on me one day, like, oh, okay, damn, this is what they talking about. Your development gets arrested. Your development gets put on hold, right? And so I remember 2005, somewhere around the time when I first got to CMC, right? And I seen this dude walking around with a jerry curl. By that time, man, jerry curls had been played out at least 15, 20 years, right? But had this individual got arrested in 91, 92, when jerry curls was in style, to him, it was still the thing because he was not able to keep up with what was going on out there in those streets, right? And so when you go to prison, education, unless it's self-desired, is not something that's necessarily pushed on the masses, right? One thing I realized in prison, you have way more people going along to get along than people who are really about that life or people who are really about whatever it is they're proclaiming to be. On the 4-yard, where violence is key, you will have a lot of individuals doing things because if they do the opposite of what's expected of them, they will get stabbed and potentially killed, right? So it is for that reason, right, that you have individuals who will act a certain way. I've seen dudes on a 4-yard, man, be the ultimate soldier. Years down the line, I got on a level 2 with some of these individuals, and they was doing things that they would have never done on a 4-yard. And so some of you guys may not be familiar with the term, it's not on me, it's in me. And so clearly in those situations, it was an act that they was putting on those 4 yards. So they was acting, it was just on them. It wasn't in them, because if it was in them, they would conduct themselves a certain way regardless of what level of yard they was on, whether it was on a 4 yard, a 3 yard, a 2 yard. If you're not gonna steal, you just not gonna steal. It doesn't matter if you on a 4 or a 2. But it did matter for some, because some individuals knew that the caliber of individuals that was on a 4 yard was not on a 2 yard, and so they could get away with certain things. And of course, we do learn certain things in prison, right? You learn things about respect, but a lot of the real things that make a person grow maturity wise, it's not pushed on individuals, right? A lot of times, individuals who truly educate themselves, it's because it's self-desired, right? If you didn't go to, if you wasn't sentenced as a life prisoner. And so basically, only thing you have to do in order to get out of prison, you just have to survive your term. If they give you 8 years and you get half time and you're going to be out in 4 years, or they give you 85% and you're going to be out in 6 years, 11 months, or whatever the math is, all you had to do is really just stick to the rules, which really wasn't hard. All you had to do was follow the rules of whatever collective you chose to function with, right? When I went to prison, I was a big clown. I love to clown. I love to have fun. I love to tell jokes, bag on people, so on and so forth, right? But over a period of time, you just learn that type of behavior is not conducive for staying out of trouble, right? One thing I learned in prison is you could laugh and joke for an individual for a year, 2, or whatever. You guys been laughing and joking, having fun, clowning. Then suddenly this dude gets he gets a letter telling him that his baby mom is cheating, his mother passed away, any old type of thing, right? And now this dude is not the same. So now you come out to normally clown with him as you always do, and he's not in the mood for it, so it just leads to problems. And then if this individual happens to be from another collective, he could be another Crip that you're joking with. But now, since he's from another collective, now you have to worry about the potential problem of your collective and his collective getting into it. So that's why I had to eventually learn to reel a lot of that playing and other things that I did in, because situations like that wouldn't always be healthy in prison, right? And so okay, and then like I said, if you wasn't a lifer, you wasn't necessarily potentially looking to even seek education. And then sometimes lifers, they didn't always do it either, like myself included, right? I felt that I had life, so why the hell should I go over here and try to learn a trade that I'm never ever going to be able to use? If I'm never coming home, what the hell should I go learn a trade for? So that thinking later on obviously hurt me when I did come home and I didn't have as many trades, or as many what's the terminology that they used to use? Marketable skills. That was the terminology. I didn't have as many marketable skills as other individuals, because I saw no reason to go and learn all these computer classes, mechanic classes, mill and cabinet, where I could do this carpentry, so on and so forth, right? My thing was, I'm going to be on the yard. I'm going to hang with the homies. I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to do the things that I like to do. So I didn't put myself in the best position, right, to be marketable in the event I was released. Because when I first came to prison, I told you, a dude told me and another individual that I was standing there with, oh man, you got life? Oh, you got life? Y'all ain't never going home. Y'all gonna be walking the yard with me. And so when you start to interact with other individuals and they have those same sentiments, after a while, depending on your mindset, you can let their feelings about the chances of parole become your feelings. And then that's when you have the negative mindset of, you know what? I might as well get into it. I might as well do this. I might as well do that, because I'm never going any place. Another thing I learned when I was at CMC, and this is what I want to say about CMC, right? As I said before, CMC was a general population prison that the Northerners, the Southerners, and the whites was not supposed to go to, right? But you had many individuals from those collectives, especially Southerners and whites, who did not follow those, who did not follow those guidelines. They came there and they stayed. You also had many Southerners who came there and chose not to stay. You didn't have to have any type of special special charges or this or that in your file to get put up for CMC, because in the eyes of the CDCR, the administration, that's a regular prison. They're not going to let the convicts dictate what prisons they do and they don't go to, right? So if you guys don't want to go to that prison, when we put you up and send you to that prison, handle your business, right? I seen somebody the other day said, oh man, Chill must have had some type of spousal abuse charges and that's why they sent them there. I don't know where these guys just reach and grab these conclusions out of nowhere, right? With no evidence to support anything that they're saying. In my mind, those are the makings of an ignorant individual, right? Who will come to a concrete decision with no evidence to support his reasoning. All of a sudden, if I snatch out the air that Bobby Joe has robbed an ice cream truck and this is why he's in prison with no reason to even support why I think that, then I'm the dummy. I'm just I'm making up a scenario in my head, then I'm running with it and believing that that's what it is, right? So like I said, I seen many Southsiders come there. Many Southsiders come there, get put up from there because, once again, this is a regular prison. We're going to put you up to go to this prison. When your points drop or when your points raise, depending on what area you happen to be in and depending on what prison has open space, we're going to send you there. If you don't want to stay there, handle your business when you get there. I seen many Southsiders come there and handle their business. They didn't want to be there. So the process is they put us all, when we first got there, in a little cell. You'd have to stay there about 24 hours, like a little reception cell. And once they released you to the yard, the Southsiders who didn't want to be there, they might walk around for 10-15 minutes, maybe not that long, see somebody and just get off, boop bop, handle their business because they did not want to be there, right? But for those who chose to stay, this is where I saw, right? Because when you're only dealing with your own, like, of course, by me being a black convict, that's who I primarily dealt with, right? And so I was used to the going-ons amongst the black convicts, right? So sometimes, you may see people do business and one dude didn't keep the business clean and it created a problem, right? Now, a lot of times in these other places where the Southerners and the Northerners and whites were allowed to go, you didn't have this problem because whites, first of all, and Southerners was not supposed to be doing business with blacks from the get-go. So for the ones who would sneak and do business with blacks, they made sure to handle their business because they knew that they would be in double violation, for one, for not paying the debt, and for two, first and foremost, and most deadly to their livelihood and their health, doing business with a black anyway. So they always chose to pay their debts and take care of their business so their business would not be exposed to their collective. So once I got to CMC, where there was less politics, especially among other races that wasn't supposed to be there from the get-go, it was pretty much, hey, they all hung out with each other, but it was pretty much sometimes mano y mano if you happen to get yourself in a situation, right? And so it was there that I seen you had many Mexicans, you had many whites who would get into situations with blacks, and now they wasn't so concerned with paying their debts or whatever, or it wasn't like as if they wasn't concerned, just certain situations potentially may have arose where they couldn't pay their debts. A dope fiend is a dope fiend is a dope fiend. A dope fiend doesn't come with color, right? So, at these other prisons, I thought that was a behavior they knew better to partake in, but it was only because of the consequences. As there at CMC, I've seen many races, I've seen many individuals of all races fail to or be unable to pay their debt. It had nothing to do with color. It had more to do now that the fear of being killed on one of these other prisons was not as close to them, or they was not as concerned about. So, they done what all dope fiends will do, right? So it has nothing to do, once again, with color. It has more to do with, fear honestly keeps individuals in line to a certain degree. That's not to say that on some of these level 4s and level 3s, you don't have individuals of one race playing with the money of another race, because that happens too, but it's just not as often, right? And so it has, once again, nothing to do with race, Strictly, it has to do with the fear of being assaulted, the fear of being harmed, hurt, and or killed, right? And so this is the reason, though. This is the reason that from time to time you will see what people will consider is childish or immature behavior of the prison YouTubers. Because once again, when we go to prison, growth and maturation is not something that is widespread, or not something that is pushed down on others, man. On others in your collective. What's pushed down on the others in your collective is, first and foremost, doing your time like you're supposed to do, staying out of trouble, not creating any type of waves in what's going on, man. And so it's not necessarily requested that you mature and you do all this type of things that a person would correlate with your age, right? And so that's the reason a lot of times that once again, you see these YouTubers, like I said, myself included, we get out and we participate sometimes in these antics because our development has been arrested while being in prison. Many of us who have went to prison at the age of 20, 21, 22, and we're going to prison once again, hanging out with gangs, and where violence is, advocated for, where violence is the law of the land in certain situations. So these are the things that are focused on, and these are the things that are applauded in prison, being able to handle your business when it's time, fighting and doing all this type of stuff, right? And so that's the reason for all that, right? And so I just wanted to speak on that because I'd seen somebody make a comment a day or two ago that made this topic come to mind. So of course, when we go to prison, most definitely a lot of times our development does get arrested because we don't have an outlet to the rest of the world. We don't see what's going on. Only thing we see is, what's going on within those prison walls. And of course, what's going on within those prison walls is pretty much the same thing going on at the next prison and the next prison and the next prison. So anyway, man, I just wanted to drop that on y'all. You already know what time it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.